Okay, I think this is working. Hi, I'm Karen Goodfellow. I'm the director of the BostonAIR Commission and BostonAIR.
I'm Karen Young. I was part of BostonAIR 3.0 as an artist in residence in 2018.
So welcome to the webinar for this fourth year of BostonAIR, which we will be working on together. I'll be the director and Karen is coming in as a mentor this year. So just heads up, this is the first time we've used this tool for a webinar. We are joined by our Director of Communications, Christina Carroll, with us, so she may be advising us along the way, for example, on how to get the slideshow up right now.
Okay, so. Oh, you're in Chrome. Okay.
Ah, there it is. Okay, great, thank you.
So now just click into that.
Can I use this? Yes. Again, so this is us, Karen and Karen. Gonna quickly go over our agenda today. We are planning on tonight being somewhere between an hour and a half. We'll see how it flows and how many questions we get in. This obviously is happening live right now, but this will also be on the website. So if you don't have time to be here with us for the whole thing tonight, you can return and watch it recorded version. So we are going to be doing a little bit of a program overview and talking about the call to artists, which is out right now. We're going to go over the timeline and the structure. We'll also doing a quick recap of past year projects, just the basic history of the program. And then Karen will talk to us about, her experience and some maybe advice on applying to the residency, and a little bit about the project that she did through BostonAIR, and then we're going to answer some of your questions. And that is our plan. So here we are just giving you a quotation from the mayor. This is a really important project for us in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. Mayor Walsh has been a big supporter of this project throughout. His quotation is that artists in residence implement projects that imagine and test new approaches to City of Boston policies, processes, and procedures with the help of various City of Boston departments. And that this in turn helps to create a stronger and more equitable city. And that really sort of ties us into what we're trying to do. We're bringing in artists to work with us here at the City of Boston, but our goal really is to make a stronger and more equitable city.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have to have the link.
So all of this information, just as well, is in the call to artists. So we're just going to break it down and sort of talk about it a little bit. We tried to write it up really clearly, but sometimes just hearing something spoken about might help a little bit. The artist residency that we have, it's a program that has a multidisciplinary cohort of artists, which I think is pretty unique. We bring in artists from drummers to poets to painters to dancers, and we bring them all together to be in a cohort over the course of the year. And they are working with a parallel cohort of City of Boston partners who are also coming from all different departments, and we'll go over that. And they're coming together to explore, to critique, and really to reimagine city initiatives. And we really see this program happening at the intersection of civil service, social justice, and artistic practice. I think the terms, civic practice is something we talk about a lot, and Karen might get into a little bit when she talks about her project. But the way we're seeing it really is that, the coming together to co-design and to do projects that speak to the needs and desires of the community. So for BostonAIR, these will be researched and co-designed and implemented during the residency. They may have lives along the way, but this is a chance to really see those sorts of projects. And the projects that we're doing are artist-driven, but the proposals will be developed over the course of the residency with a partnering city staff member and department. And that imagining will happen collaboratively, and it will be a real sharing of skill sets and expertise in order to test some approaches to the way we operate here at the city, and looking at our policies, processes, and procedures that speak to existing issues in the community or that a department may be grappling with. And a lot of that work will then be shared publicly. It can happen in a lot of different ways depending on who the artist is and who the department is. But there'll be facilitated workshops, public presentations, community engagement of different types, lots of different kinds of storytelling, and also written reports. So we are hoping to really get into some nuts and bolts, which is what most of you are probably interested in right now. So there's a call to artists out. And we'll go over the timeline in more detail, but it's been out for a little bit. Obviously, today's the webinar, January 8th. There is an upcoming deadline coming in for the written question deadline, and I know that sounds a little confusing, and I just want to explain exactly what that is. So we get a lot of emailed questions in, and we want to answer them very fairly. So we're taking them all in until Thursday at 5 o'clock, and those are sent into BostonAIR at boston.gov, and we're compiling them so that we can then post them online and answer all your questions at once and make sure that we're answering them all really fairly. So far, most of them have been about eligibility, so we'll get to a little bit of that, but there have been some other sort of more intricate questions, but we will, again, compile them and post them on boston.gov / BostonAIR once we have all those. But you have until Thursday just to email in your questions, and we promise we'll answer them. The application deadline is coming up on January 22nd. There's a 5 p.m. cutoff there, so please pay careful attention to that. We've all sort of tried to submit things at 4:58, and had a little trouble. So please try to get your applications in advance so that you don't have any technical problems. But if you are working on something, I think you can submit, and on Submittable is what we use, this program called Submittable. You should be able to submit something, and make sure that it looks right going back. So I would say get in earlier if possible. We're offering $30,000, which is the most we've ever given for this program, as an artist fee, and up to $10,000 in additional materials funding. And so that's covering of everything. And again, I talked a little bit about eligibility has been the biggest question we've been getting. This is written broadly, intentionally, and I think Karen again will get into some of our thinking here. We're looking for experienced artists, cultural practitioners, and/or cultural workers. We're going to use the term artist to sort of encompass all of those, but we do consider that sort of an umbrella term. And experience is super important. We are looking for people who are really comfortable in their craft, looking to grow, but they have put in a lot of time and experience and can bring that expertise into their work. We're also really excited to have sort of a diverse cohort of artists working in different media. So again, if you work in something that you wouldn't normally call yourself an artist, but it's you're on the line, you're not sure, I would encourage you to apply. So we're really looking to expand our understanding of what an artist is in that way. If you work at the city full time, or if you have already led a fully funded BostonAIR project, or if you've gotten the artist fellowship, you would not be eligible, unfortunately. So that's unfortunate, but that's not most of you, so that's okay. The selection process, so there are going to be a couple of phases to that. The first phase is that we're going to have a committee of local arts leaders, as well as the BostonAIR mentors who are working with us this year, to do a first review of the submission. So really, like, that first round is going to be looking at you from the artist's point of view. We will then, after that committee goes through them, we will, internally at the city, look at them for matches and compatibility with the partnering departments. I see a typo. And partnering. And then we'll have some interviews and ask for references. We are going to be selecting 5 artists this year. So that is fewer than we have done in the past. We are really looking to get really strong artists in, and we're really excited, but we will be looking for 5 of them, which is still a good sized cohort, and we're very excited for it. The selection criteria are listed here. I recommend you look at them really closely. Obviously, as I mentioned, that your work as an artist is really important. We want to see that sort of vision that if you've worked, with others in the past, make sure like we're getting a sense of who you are as an artist and what your artistic vision is. We want to know that you have experience and interest in collaborative creative work. The work we do in BostonAIR is super collaborative. If you're somebody who needs to work solo all the time, this might be uncomfortable for you. So that's something to keep in mind. It could be good uncomfortable, but you have to be like willing to jump into it. You should be able to demonstrate your organizational experience. So you can, if your artist work doesn't show that, you can show it in other ways that you have done some organizing or administrative work could do that. And we want to know that you have firsthand knowledge of the cultures and communities in the city of Boston. And we want you to, share with us your interest in social justice, resilience, and racial equity. And we want to know that your work or interest align with an identified City of Boston department or policy area. So maybe you've not worked with elders before, but what do we have, housing before, but you have a strong interest in doing that and you can find some connections with what you've been doing. Just share that. If it doesn't show in your past work, talk to us about how you think you can make that connection. So the application, so again, this is taken directly from the call to artists. We're using something called Submittable. That's how we do our, just about all our calls to artists and grants. You'll have to create an account to do that. And we are not asking for proposals, and we're only taking them in this way. We're not taking any written applications. And here again, I'm just saying if you have questions to email them in, and these are the details of that, to send them in by Thursday, January 10th at 5 p.m. If you put in the subject line, BostonAIR questions, it makes my life easier, so please do that too. And we'll be posting them online by January 15th with the help of Christina. And here I just wanted to sort of jump into like nuts and bolts, like what the application is actually asking for. So obviously your name, home address, city, state, and zip. People, we only have one line for that, so if you can just make sure to put them all in there, not just your street address, that would be great. Email address and phone number required. Website, if you have one, is super interesting and helpful to look at. Your medium, how you self-identify that, and then your artist statement or philosophy. That's really sort of subjective. That can be something that you use all the time, or that you are sharing a more specific version for this. None of these they're pretty significant word limits on it all, but if you want to show your particular compatibility with this program, maybe take a look at that and make sure it's lining up. We also ask you to rank the partnering city departments that you want to work with. And so you'll be able to share all that. And obviously your portfolio or examples of your work, your CV. And again, this is an optional question. If it's not evident in your body of work, please address any additional experience or interest relevant to the selection criteria. So it's just like, in anything, like if there's something you feel like, that's really true about you that isn't told in the story of your past experience or the work you're sharing, just talk to us about it. Tell us, why you'd be really good for this, or what passion you have that may be coming from your personal life or something else. That would be a great connection. And the final one is, we're asking for a minimum of 15 hours a week for you to do the residency. Do you have that? Do you have that time? So I think that's really important for you to consider whether you can make a fair commitment for a year to give 15 hours a week to the residency. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about this upcoming year. So the timeline and the structure of the program. This is in the call to artists. You can find this pretty easily. Again, just take a look at this and get a sense. Really think about whether this will work for you. I don't know what you're doing with the rest of your life, but if you're teaching or if you have family responsibilities, really looking at this and making sure this feels like it's a good fit for you. And if you have questions, please do write in with them by Thursday. This is sort of just to help us understand the structure of the program, it's pretty basic. Again, there's a cohort of artists who are these, it's going to be these 5 amazing artists working in different media, and a group of city employees working also in really different subject matter. So they're coming from different departments. They may or may not know each other very well, and we're all going to be coming together as a cohort, but also each artist will be paired with a city employee in their partnership, and they'll be doing co-design work over the course of the year. So everybody's bringing really wonderful expertise to the table and experience, and we'll be working together, we'll be having workshops, we'll be listening to speakers, and we'll be sharing our own work over the course of the year. The first 2 months are really devoted to research, and you can come in to the program with interest, but you don't have to know what you're going to do. You probably should not. You should give yourself a chance to orient yourself. City Hall and the City of Boston as an organization can be really exciting to get to know from the inside, which you have the opportunity to do through this. And then you'll jump into co-creating that vision, co-designing with your city partner, bouncing ideas off your other cohort members, and talking to the mentors and getting their thoughts and developing a proposal. Okay. I mentioned the city partners, so here's just a list. Something different we did this year was we asked the city departments to apply to be members of BostonAIR. So each of these folks already did an application, and they've been selected to potentially partner with you. So as you can see, there are more than 5 of them, so they're likely not all going to get a partner. So they're really excited. So think about who you're interested in. Again, these are all very different departments, and they offer a lot of really interesting content. If you're an artist who has worked, in recovery services around addiction, in your work before, this could be a good opportunity for you to connect and really help yourself, to expand your work. The same thing is true of all of these. It's a really great opportunity to sort of get access to really good content and partnership, and also potentially to create impact in the city and change the way the city operates. But you will be asked to rank them. So you're going to have to put all of them into ranked order. And you'll also be asked to talk about why did you pick the ones you did? I mentioned that we're going to have cohort meetings and workshops. That's something that's going to happen really regularly. Once a month we'll meet, with both cohorts all together, actually in this room. And then once a month as well, we'll have just the artists come together. And we'll also have AIR mentors, and that's something new this year as well, which we're really excited for. And we have one from each year. So Shapang Liu from the first year, Rasheen Fahandej from the second year, and Karen Young from year 3. The program requirements, so we're trying to be really clear and transparent about all of this. So there are a lot of great resources that we offer. So as we talked a little bit about, you get to learn about the internal mechanisms of city government. You get access to City Hall offices to do your research. You get this amazing peer group of artists you're in a cohort with, a diverse audience from across the city. You should also get a dedicated office space or a desk in a City of Boston department. That will look different depending on which department you end up working with. It's not a studio. It's a place to go in and to work and to be part of that department. You'll have mentorship with past Boston artists in residence, and you'll get feedback at one point with members of the advisory committee who are going to be part of the selection group who does that first review of your applications. And you'll also get paid access to the Arts Equity Summit. We want to be really clear that we are quite serious about meeting a commitment of 15 hours a week for the residency, attendance at program orientation sessions and 2 monthly meetings. The rest of it will sort of be designed by yourself and your partner. And you should be making at least 2 public presentations. It may depend on who you are and what you do, how public you are and how much engagement you do, but we want at least 2. We want to really share this work with the people of Boston. And we'll also be asking for you to submit monthly reports, some progress updates and budget outlines. And we want you to be available, to meet with myself and Sharon Amaguni, who worked with us in the past, is coming back as the program manager. Yay. So yeah, so she's really great and you'll enjoy that. And so we just want you to be available to also meet with us. And we want to be there as a resource for you. And we really want the punctual submission of your project drafts and your final proposal. So we'll be going over all of this as we are in the program, but if you are not able to meet those requirements, then you won't be able to continue with the residency. And so the last thing to really sort of touch on in terms of talking about the program is that so as I said, we're entering the 4th year and we've had 3 years and we've really evolved over the course of these 4 years. This has been sort of a really dynamic learning experience for all of us. So in a lot of the things that you're seeing in the program structure this year came out of conversations that I've really had with colleagues at City Hall, but also artists who have been through the program and really listened to feedback and evaluation from other experts that we've been able to work with. Which has been really amazing, but some of the core learnings have been embedded into the values of this year. So I would say from last year, Karen's year, we were examining city policies with a lens of resilience and racial equity. From the 2nd year, we were really valuing proximity to people by pursuing an understanding of the impact of local government policy in the lived experience of Bostonians. And that was the year we were working at community centers. So really thinking about policy, but looking at how it impacts individuals. And that's Rasheen's year, the mentor. And then the 1st year, we were really looking at supporting collaborative and democratic creation of city policy process and practice. So that's Shipang Liu, who will also be a mentor this year. So just going over very briefly your history, we talked a little bit about this, that we want to give you examples, but we don't want you to see these as things you have to replicate. Every artist project is really based on who they are, the department, the moment in time. I think you can look at them really differently depending on what was happening in Boston and the world at that moment. But in year 1, we had an NEA grant. We're really excited. We started with a bigger group of artists. We had less funding for it at that time, so we ended up having 3 artists in total do full residency. So that was Shipang along with Georgie Friedman and Lamarchi Frazier, who were really wonderful and worked with the police department, Office of Recovery Services, and Department of Neighborhood Development that 1st year. And we did a lot of learning together. We were also partnering with Mass Art that year and the mayor's office, New Urban Mechanics. So that was like a really fun year to sort of start the program out and really figure out like what BostonAIR could look like. And this gives you some idea of that first big group of artists that we worked with. They came in from all different disciplines and they were doing all sorts of different work. And again, 3 of them were selected to move forward with their projects. And then in the 2nd year, we really expanded it and we ended up working with 10 artists for the full course of the year. And this was the year when we really asked them to connect to community and to really think about the city and its relation, the lived experience of Bostonians, and do that through working with BCYF centers. And here you get a sense of who the artists were that year. Again, there were 10 of them. We had Ann Hersher was a sculptor, Cornell Coley was a drummer, Jen DeLeon is a writer, John Walsh, who was a graphic artist. Anyway, you'll see them all in. Rasheen Fahandeh, who is coming back, works in multimedia, and you may have just recently seen her work at the ICA because she got a Foster Prize, which was very exciting. So anyways, we had this really great group of artists coming together that year as well. And working all across the city. So they were working in community centers all across the city. And in the 3rd year, that's the most recent year, we had 7 artists and they spent their residencies focusing on resilience and racial equity. So they use that lens to examine high priority initiatives at the city of Boston. Again, here you get a sense of them. Nakia Hill, who's a poet, Steve Block, who's an artist and painter, and who really examined city policies, Fry Williams, Marsha with Dancer Organica, and there's Sharon, myself, Daniel Johnson, a poet, and Karen. So we're probably missing someone there, but Sneha. So yeah, Sneha's missing there, thanks. But it was a really wonderful group of artists coming from all over and paying careful attention to city initiatives with the lens of resilience and racial equity. And with that, I'm going to introduce Karen Young. So you can read a little bit about her bio here, but Karen has decades-long work, so she has that experience as a community builder and performer. Artist Karen Young inspires real connection. Her personal story of disenfranchisement compelled her to find her own voice and use it to help others find theirs. Her passion for taiko drumming was ignited the first time she heard it 30 years ago. It is now the center of her work, turning aspiration into realization. Young's approach to taiko inspires marginalized populations to reclaim voice, culture, power, and a sense of belonging. Influenced by Japanese-American taiko activists of the 60s, Young is the fire behind the Genki Spark, a multi-generational Pan-Asian women's arts and advocacy organization that uses taiko drumming, personal stories, and creativity to build community, develop leadership, and advocate respect for all.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am excited to talk a little bit about my experience with BostonAIR. And I just want to say that I applied twice. What really brought me to, and I want to encourage folks to apply again, if that's something that you're interested in doing. I really was interested at the intersection of organizing and art. And I have to say, as someone who plays taiko, I didn't really call myself an artist with a capital A until until I got the BostonAIR Award, and I was like, oh, I guess I am an artist. And I think, you know, for those that work in the area of culture, sometimes we see these kinds of things and it may not see ourselves reflected back. And I think we're really trying to figure out how to expand, you know, and really see ourselves sort of as artists. And so I now call myself a cultural organizer, cultural worker, arts activist. I use all kinds of names, but being part of BostonAIR really changed my life in a huge way. I've been playing taiko for, you know, over 20 years and knew my field really well. But one thing that I was super excited about was being part of a cohort and really working with artists and others, seeing what other artists were doing in terms of using their art as a vehicle for change and to, you know, to really bolster or really sort of make visible community issues in the city. So I think, you know, my year, I was in 2018. I was really definitely been playing taiko, organizing festivals, but this really gave me a chance to really spend a good year, a significant time, like working with the community. And that's what was really exciting for me. I chose the issue of working with elders and the Age Strong Commission, and being part of the Community Center, BCYF Senior Center, really gave me an opportunity to have already a population of elders in Dorchester. And so I was really excited to see what I could do with them and what I could do. As an artist, I'm really interested in what happens when someone hits the drum, you know, and they take a stick and they hit a drum and they have, you know, they're interested in looking at issues of power and identity. So I think for me, I said I applied twice. The first time I applied, I got all the way to the interview and I was asked the question, describe your civic practice. And I didn't know how to answer that question. And I think, you know, partly, you know, what BostonAIR is trying to do is really try to be as transparent as possible. But really, for me, I had to do a lot of homework around what does civic practice mean? So I would encourage folks, there's a lot of stuff online and in the links for the city of Boston that just kind of talk about like what civic practice would look like, you know, through the artist programs. But there's also a lot of videos on YouTube. I watched, second time around, I read everything really carefully. I Googled what is civic practice, what is social practice. I watched as many YouTube videos as possible to kind of learn what that was about. And I've been a community organizer for years, but I didn't really know how to talk about it as an artist. So that's a little bit about sort of how I came into this work. And it's really exciting to meet other artists really committed to looking at this intersection of art and activism and particularly looking at city policy. And that was also something I was really kind of grappling with, actually, was like, how do we actually make a difference on public policy. Like, what is public policy and what does it mean to actually engage people? So I created a program called Older and Bolder. And one of the things that came up was looking at street safety. Street safety in particular and how it impacted elders. So I'm going to show a short video here on this, what we call the crosswalk video.
We are seniors, we are boulders, we are olders, but we need to be taken care of.
You know, and it can be very dangerous, you know, and sometimes it's the cars don't know if they want to stop for you and you don't know if you should walk out in front of them. So it's a dangerous situation out there. It really is. And I don't know, I guess a cross light would be really the thing that would make people stop. They have to see, a lot of people have to see a red light.
The best thing about me is my family and taking care or helping taking care of them. I'm coming here to the center is my second home.
Hopefully today we can after today, we can build on this momentum and really come together and create built environment improvements to the street that slow traffic down, make safer crossings for everyone, that make it comfortable and accessible for everyone to get around here in Grove Hall.
We asked to have the crosswalk looked at and to have it slow down and to look at traffic calming measures. But there's nothing like having an event like this to bring attention to it, to have people out, to show music and art.
As I grow older, I'm very conscious of things around me. I'm not afraid to speak, you know, to act.
Our main goal is to provide a voice for seniors. This is very important. Let's bring awareness to this crosswalk. Let's bring awareness to the seniors. Let's bring awareness to intergenerational connection and become a community again. Thank you.
So nice. It's great to see.
Yeah, so there's another video on YouTube, the Older and Bolder introduction, but I just want to say this is just one project. As Karen said, like every artist has their own perspective and their own sort of way in, but it really is an opportunity to, we used the word last year, bolster a lot, to really sort of bolster, highlight, support, empower, work with a community and really think about what can be done through art. And so the other thing I just want to say is City Hall. So this is also like an opportunity to really dive deep and look at City Hall. And I talk about this, like, you know, for me before I lived in Boston 25 years, but like City Hall was always what you avoided because you're always being fined or there's some form you forgot to fill out or they want to like somehow ticket you for something or something, but that wasn't a place to avoid. And so this really became my year, was also this year of like really looking at the resources here and really meeting some great people who are really trying to make a difference in the city. So that was pretty awesome. The other thing about this project is that there's a communications team that is also trying to help you be visible about your work. And so I used part of my year to think about like, how could I really document my practice? So this video came out, a couple other videos, but you get to be highlighted in different ways, and so that's pretty exciting. I just also want to stress like the importance of collaboration, which is probably pretty clear. I worked with BCYF Grove Hall, but also the Age Strong Commission, as well as the Boston Transportation Department and other community organizations to do this project. And here are some of the other things that we did. So we performed at the National Night Out. And these are a couple photos from that event. And so Older and Bolder continues. The next year I applied for and received a Live Arts Boston grant to actually write an Older and Bolder anthem. So I continue to work with this group. That's just something that came out of my particular residency. And I'm really excited. The elders are wanting to be on the Ellen Show and wanting to continue to sort of make a place and make a space and have visibility and speak out as elders in the city. So that's about what I have to say.
Okay, I'm going to see about questions. Is that it?
27 people, awesome.
So people can submit questions.
So I don't know if anyone has submitted questions, but we believe you should be able to. Oh, wait, looks like questions. Great. Oh no, someone said, should I be hearing anything at this point?
Hopefully they can hear things.
Yeah, oh, no, now I can hear. Oh, good. Wow, I really wish I had looked at that at first. That was so scary.
Oh,
I was like,
no.
oh God, I'm sorry we wasted your time. Okay, thank you. Okay, can we make this,
You can expand that.
again, bear with us as we sort of figure out, I don't know.
The green plus. Yep.
Okay, in terms of writing about why we have selected a city partner, is it okay to focus just on our first choice on the list, or do we need to address a broader number of departments, such as the top 3 places? I think it depends on whether you are willing to, you're really only interested in one, or you'd be interested in the other ones genuinely. So I think that's up to you. So if you really only want to work with that one, you should be really clear and say, this is my number one. If you're somebody who is sort of torn and feels like 2 of them or 3 of them would be a really good fit for you, then say that. Do you have to live in Boston proper to apply? No, you don't. We're looking for people with knowledge of the cultures and communities of Boston. You have to be around for 15 hours a week. So you certainly do need to be close by, but we are aware that many of our artists don't live in Boston proper.
It's related.
Okay, another question about residency. First-hand knowledge of cultures and communities in Boston. Does this mean that you are less inclined to accept people from out of state, the city? Right, so if you are out of state, but you're planning on coming back, or you used to know Boston, or you feel like there is a culture in Boston that is related to something you know that is more than geographic, so there are a lot of different kinds of cultures and communities, then you can sort of make that case for yourself. Is there an acceptable substitute for in-person first-hand knowledge? Again, I wouldn't say that there's a substitute for first-hand knowledge, but I would say there are different ways that we can all understand community, and you can make your case for that if you are so moved. Okay, when we write our applications, should we be thinking about how our potential work can impact city policy long-term? Yes. I don't think you have to be there right now. I think you have to keep in mind that you're going to be doing that research, but yeah, you should. You can think about that. I think that would be good. I would say you didn't think about changing a crosswalk or changing like relating to Vision Zero when you applied.
Yeah, I think I just want to say, like, there's so much that you have a year, and there's so much that changes as we know the process throughout. You know, my focus was how do I make elders more visible and build a elder movement, and through working with that community came issues that they wanted to work on. So I wouldn't be too wed to exactly what you're going to do,
right? But
definitely, you know, some concepts or something, ideas.
Right, and I think, like, are you excited about doing that kind of work? I think would be interesting too.
Right.
Okay. How much did you involve your practice you applied with in your actual project? So Tycho.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I was really curious about, as a musician, how do I actually do this work? And I remember looking at Chopin's work and her videos, and you know, was she actually teaching people how to play the violin? And I think that's going to differ for everyone. I mean, for me, I taught weekly classes, TICO classes at the center, just so that we could have conversations about power and visibility, but it really became performance because spoken word became part of it. So it became, how do I use performance and other, kinds of vehicles to be visible, and it sort of naturally aligned. But I also had an older and bolder discussion meeting that had, so I would have 10 or 15 people in the TICO group, TICO workshops and classes, but then I would have like 40 elders in the older and bolder discussion group, which was not, because not everyone can play TICO, not everyone's interested in TICO. So.
And if so, I'm not sure what this related to before. Okay, when we write our application, should we be thinking about how, city policy. Okay, sorry, this was a two-part. This one's connecting back to the question about should you be thinking about long-term city policy? Are there ways we should indicate so on the application? I think that could be included. Again, it would be only if that is something true to you. It's something that you're really interested in. So if you as a person, and again, you want to take your artistic cultural practice and apply it to, civic work, and you have an aim in that, then sure, share that in your vision. Okay, would you please speak more to organizational experience? What are illustration's values? What are the skill sets that will best serve this program's aims? So organizational experience, I think, could be a lot of different things. You could, so that's one of the selection criteria, right? So we're asking, wow, we have a lot. All right, maybe we should go faster. All right. Sorry. So there we're just asking, to show. Karen talked about her work sort of as an activist organizing, right? But also as a leader, right, of a group organizing people. So in this, you'll be, again, it's not you alone working on your artwork or your practice. It's you working with others and helping to pull them together. So I think that's what we're looking for there. Just for you to talk to us a little bit about how you can lead and wrangle.
Yeah. In my year, they asked about, just your ability to organize, like, emails, like how do you organize a project? What systems do you use to organize yourself? Like evidence that you can pull off.
Right. And so it's also like looking for compatibility with like the city of Boston, right? So if you're going to be talking about policies, like, can you translate your work into something that will make sense to us here? Okay. So what would you tell us are the benefits of being a part of this residency after the residency is complete?
I spoke a bit about that, but I think for me, it's really led to, there's incredible personal development that happened. I think as somebody that didn't declare myself an artist, all of a sudden, a lot of things opened up to me, including other grants. I started applying to other, creative capital, a blade of grass. I started applying to other fellowships and residencies that BostonAIR gave me a leg up that I could really leverage. I also had other speaking opportunities, and we spoke at what was the big, can artists change the city?
Hub Week?
Hub Week, and we spoke at Hub Week. We also gave other presentations that get recorded, so then you have that for your portfolio. You have photos that come out. But really, there was a huge growth spurt just in terms of my ability to make change happen.
What was something you struggled with during your residency?
Oh my gosh, what was something that I struggled with my residency? Wow. Well, to be honest, part of what was difficult, and I think it's going to be different this year, but being based in the Boston Center for Youth and Families Grove Hall Senior Center, you're really trying to balance sort of what you see there happening and their agenda for the community they're working with. So I was always working with the staff there, making sure that sort of what I was doing was in alignment with what they were doing. But I also have my own goals. And also BostonAIR has their particular goals. And so I think as an artist, you're trying to figure out how to really support what's happening, but at the same time, there's times where you may differ. There's also, honestly, agendas between city departments that gets really hard to navigate. And I came to Karen several times trying to figure out how to particularly, when you see this department not necessarily get along, how do you handle that? And what's my role as an artist? The other thing was really talking about having them understand what it means to be a BostonAIR artist. Like, you're not necessarily there to be an arts educator. And I think that's what people think all the time, like you're going to come in and provide arts programming. And I was kind of worried, that a department might think, I was just in there to do design work or just photography or just something. And you really are using your mind to create something that's much bigger than that. And I remember one city person saying after we had pulled off the rally, she was overjoyed, but she also said, I bet you never thought this was going to happen. Like, you had no idea what was going to happen when you started. And it's true. I didn't know exactly concretely what the end result was going to be, but I absolutely knew that activism and engagement was going to happen. So that rally was not a surprise at all.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's just from the previous one. Is preference given to artists who live in Boston? Are artists outside of Boston eligible? Artists outside of Boston are eligible. Artists with experience and knowledge of Boston are preferred. Yes. Is it possible to work with a department which was not? No. Sorry, I should finish the question. Is it possible to work with a department which has not applied to be part of AIR? So not as a primary partner. Things will develop as we go. You might start working with one of the departments, in public health, and realize it connects really well to the library or something like that, and we can talk to them. So I would say not as a primary partner for sure, but there can be other connections made. It's not. We're not so siloed here. There's a lot of overlapping.
And I just want to reinforce or echo that, like, it's super exciting to be able to do that, because now you're BostonAIR, you're part of City Hall, and so that kind of gives you permission to knock on the doors of everyone here and say, ask for help.
Right. So, but your like partnership will be with one of those departments, and they'll co-design. What is this year's theme? We don't have a theme this year. So what we did is, we really are sort of focusing on our learnings from those 3 years as we went over, but there's not an explicit theme. We took the themes that we had before and brought in the learning from them. Okay. So we might be working with more than one city department. It's not as a primary partner. So I think, like, working at the city, you may touch a lot of different things. You will have a city department, you will have one primary city department partner who will be, co-designing with you, but there might be other connections. How do we engage knowledge of Boston cultural communities? I think we'll look to you to tell us about your knowledge of Boston cultural communities, and I think the committees reviewing them will, look for compelling descriptions and connections with your art and connections with the work you want to do. If not accepted this year, will next year's residency be similar? Why? I don't know yet. I think it's likely that it will be similar. We talked a lot about, like, the learning we've done. So we held 3 residencies, and then we took a year to do evaluation, which is really great. Working with Danya Sherman and Deidre Montgomery, and that was really helpful. Also talking to previous artists, getting a lot of informal feedback, and just taking a break and thinking about it, doing a lot of design work on it. So I feel like we have it in really good shape, but things will continue to grow and change. Okay, great, thank you. Here's one question. For multidisciplinary artists, do you recommend we focus on one specific medium that we envision for this residency, or is it okay to emphasize all mediums?
I think for me, I used Tycho and performance, but we did everything, spoken word. I think it's great to involve as many mediums as you have access to. I also brought in other artists to help with certain things. and many of the other artists, you know, sort of used everything that they could as well. We did video, we did photography, we used a lot of mediums.
I think if you do that, make sure you still have a clarity of artistic vision that you present in your application. Slides. I do a lot of work in the community already. Can I mix slides of my work with those of community members? So I think you're talking about submitting images and whether or not they should be focused on your work or showing community. I would say, we should keep going. Yeah, include some, but I would say you don't need too many of those. I would focus on showing your work. Okay, where's the next one? Can two collaborating artists apply as one applicant if their work is interconnected? No, we're looking for individuals. But if you are part of a collective or an ensemble, you know, really speak to that. But we're looking for individuals to join this year. To clarify, is the residency requirement 15 hours a week for 52 weeks? If you're from out of state, could those hours shift? For example, more hours 1 week or fewer? So it's 15 hours a week. We understand that everyone's schedule will shift from time to time. But I think we would expect an average of 15 per week. So I would not imagine that that would work if you're really trying to like, you know, focus, like do a 40-hour week and then be gone for, you know, a long time. I don't think that would end up working well for the rhythm of the program. Do you have to live in the city of Boston to apply to be an artist in residence? No, you don't. International. Can you be an international artist? You can, but you'll have to be local to be part of the residency. What are some things that make an application more competitive? Any advice on how to be best position yourself? I would say have someone review your application before you submit. Have them review that it is clearly articulated, do some editing for you, look at the examples you're giving, don't include weak examples of your work, and make sure to present yourself as professionally as possible and just to share who you really are and what you're earnestly interested in.
As someone who applied twice, also be really ready for the interview. I practiced interviewed. I actually had friends like, you know, read note cards to me. I ask me questions and do practice interviews. And you know, I looked, as I said, sort of reviewed all the YouTube videos I could on past artists' work that were part of BostonAIR, and just thought of every question that could possibly come at me and really thought through all of my answers.
I think this is coming. Okay, I have commissioned work that I would like to submit in my portfolio as it's relevant to the residency, but my client does not want the work published. It's safe to say that what we submit as portfolio pieces will not be publicized and will only be used for application review purposes. Yes, that's fine. If you want, maybe if you feel better, you can add that in one of the sections. So make a note of that. Could the grant money go towards making a city policy pilot viable and create art that is self-funded? I don't really understand that question. Could the grant money go towards making a city policy pilot viable and create art that is self-funded?
I wonder if I could clarify that.
I don't really understand your question entirely. So the money, the $30,000 is going to the artist to do with as that artist pleases. That is your payment. You can put it toward whatever you want. We would not be looking for you to reinvest that in the city or to cover policies, but it will pay for your time, and you are certainly able to spend it as you see fit.
I will say, as part of my residency and part of the strategy of being visible, like we created a lot of T-shirts that were really bold in design, and we sold them to cover some of the costs. I don't know if you are thinking about that as being self-funded, but And also as a performance group right now, we are, this is sort of in year 2 and year 3 as the program's developed, able to, collect stipend or honorarium.
Okay. The artistic process, especially collaboration, is complex and messy. How does BostonAIR view the types of course correcting and learning that almost inevitably happen? What happens when things don't go as artists initially expect? That is sort of to be expected. That is a good question. I don't know. I mean, you can speak from your perspective. From what I've seen, that's why that period of research can be really helpful too, like not having your mind too set on what you'll do. But I think there's a lot of pivoting that happens throughout the year, and that's very natural and reasonable. And I think you have to have a certain amount of buoyancy to go through it. It can be hard, it can be disappointing, but it's to be expected, I think.
There's a lot of learning that happens in my year. It's not always easy to work with folks that don't understand art or understand what we're trying to do. And so there's a lot of education that needs to happen throughout the way on all sides. And I think Karen and Sharon, working with them and asking them for advice and being very clear and transparent about what's happening is really important so that they can help you problem solve.
Is there a limit to how much we can write on the submittable application? Yes, it is, and you should be able to see that. You should be able to go online and it will present itself to you, but there are limits. I think some of them are 250 and some are 500. They're pretty short, both to sort of make it easier for you to apply, but also for the readers to, for the selection committee to read through them in a fair pace. Okay. This webinar will be available on the website. It will be saved.
Oh, I see. What is your perspective on risk?
Just so you guys know, when you enter things separately, and if someone else asks a question in between, then it gets separated. So that's what's happening here. What is your perspective on risk? What was that question?
Had to do with like pivoting and
yeah. I think it's exciting. So we're asking you to test things and imagine. It's necessary, I think.
So let me just talk a little bit about the crosswalk project, which was really was really talked about as a rally, but sometimes people saw us as protesting. And when you're trying to make change happen, I was very aware that I was representing City Hall, but at the same time, the seniors really wanted that crosswalk changed. We wanted a blinking light. They wanted, the crosswalk also was right next to not only senior center, but we had a school and a public library. So it was used quite a bit. And the fact that people never stopped for it or slowed down was really concerning. And so in terms of a community organizing standpoint, you look at sort of what is the action that is going to make things move. And so, we brought in videographers to video, how the crosswalk was not being respected, partnered with other groups, BCYF Grove Hall, to some degree also being a city department, couldn't really organize a protest, but, in some ways I could. And I asked Karen, I remember talking to another former BostonAIR person about this project, and he said, don't do anything controversial. Don't do anything that's going to, make the mayor look bad. And Karen was like, yeah, you want to highlight, not make the mayor look bad, but they're asking you as an artist to highlight things that need attention. And when you're looking at things through a lens of racial equity and resilience, that means exposing, what's going on. And so I think they're asking us to take risks. They're wanting us to take risks.
Okay. Top 3 qualities you seek in work samples. I mean, I would say, it depends on your medium, but I would say make sure it's a high quality sample. So I'll say regardless whether it's sound, video, or visual, make sure your production is strong when you share it. Can you think of anything else you might want to say on that?
Well, I mean, this is ultimately about sort of community. So
Mhm.
how has your work influenced, or how have you as an artist influenced community, or partnered with community, or engaged community?
Yeah, but it could be like they could be very interested in a content area, right?
Mhm.
And the community part, might happen through the audience that they have, right? And
That's
they might
right.
not be able to show that in their work.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's fair. I think like if you have community engagement as part of your work, that would be great to show. That's a really good idea. And I think someone had asked a question around that. But I would say to show, like your work could be all about community engagement. I mean, you could be a social practice artist. You could working with people could be what you do. So show that. If it's not what you do, if you're a studio artist, but you have some other things that show engagement with your work, that could be interesting as well.
Or tell a story, or highlight an issue, or
Yeah, I mean, you can have a video, all sorts of different things. Can the 15 hours per week be spent at City Hall and or in the field with the community? Yes. It's likely going to be spread. It will also be taken up somewhat by the meetings that we have, so that would be included, and workshops. So I think you end up, spending time at City Hall, or your department could be at 1010 or could be somewhere else actually. And in the community. So we're not pairing you with community centers the way past artists have been, but you can make your own connections within the community. Or we could help you make them.
last question.
Last question. What are the, oh man, I don't know. What are the size limits on the files submitted on Submittable? I don't remember. It should say.
I don't remember,
It
but
does say.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, there's an option to look. It shows you what files are accepted and then
Yes.
the sizes.
And I think also there might have been like a video minute limit. No?
I don't remember.
We'd have to go back and check that. If you want to email that question in, if you can't figure it out by looking at Submittable, just send an email to BostonAIR at boston.gov, and we will look at that. But that would take some checking on our part. Again, if any of these other questions aren't resolved for you, for the one question, I'm sorry, we didn't quite understand what you're looking for. If you want to write it up somewhat differently and send it to us by email, I'll try to get to that, and we'll be sure to post it publicly on boston.gov/BostonAIR. All right, so
Excellent.
let's
That's
see.
all the questions.
And again, here's the place to send your questions. You have to email them by the state for us to answer them on the, it's basically like an FAQ, right? So we're gathering the frequently asked questions and then we're gonna post them. So we'll get those up there. And so probably if you have any questions after that, they'll be included. So please email those in with the subject line BostonAIR questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Go to boston.gov/BostonAIR for more information. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was helpful.
Good luck with your proposals.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.